been a while. He spent Christmas in Barbados. I spent Christmas in bed with the flu. Jack Elsom, chief political correspondent of The Sun. How are you, dear boy?
Not bad. You can probably tell by my glowing tan that
I thought you were hot.
In the Caribbean. No, I spent it with Factor 50 sun cream and in the shade.
Did you have a nice time?
Like a lobster. A fantastic time. Thank you very
How
much.
long did you go for?
10 days.
You kept texting me. I'm in bed with flu going, oh, I'm going to the fish spot for lunch. Great. Mate, let's cut to this. I mean, to me, I know you have to play it slightly different, but there have been enough examples of two-tier policing over the last 8 months. The Manchester airport saga, where the two men, I don't know whether it was because cultural division, the police officers thought quite rightly suspended straight away. The men, it wasn't looked into until pressure was brought. Many other examples, but apparently this report that Yvette Cooper asked for, as then she said, I'm not interested, it's not good enough, got leaked. And this basically by the blob in the Home Office, the not fit for purpose Home Office, says the thing about extremism is just really rhetoric from the far right.
Yeah.
Do they honestly think we're buying that?
No, I know. And to be fair to Yvette Cooper and her ministers today, they've come out and disowned this report. But it does raise serious questions and suspicions about the people working in the Home Office. Well,
why don't they do? This is what I would do. This is what I said to Richard Tice. Like him or loathe him, Donald Trump has today found out that certain officials in the Government Department for Immigration Services are fighting against and rowing back against doing what he wants implemented. So he's fired the lot of them.
Yeah, and I mean, it's incredibly difficult in this country to fire civil servants. Once you're in the door, you basically have a job for life. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing or not remains to be seen. But, I mean, this is actually a problem which Kemi Badenoch has picked up on, which previous Tory ministers have said, is that often the opposition, I mean, when you go into government, you're always outnumbered by the civil service, right? You know, the amount of ministers and their political special advisors, it's not like America where they bring in a load of political appointees, tens of thousands of them. Here, you have a few ministers, they each have one or two special advisors, and the rest of it is reliant on civil servants. Now, there are some fantastic civil servants out there, but there's also a lot of them, as Kemi Badenoch makes the point, that do not buy at all the political direction which their government wants to go into. And so, for example, the Rwanda plan. You saw a lot of Home Office officials taken to a notice board saying, we're going to down tools, there's no way we're going to push this through.
That's not your job, I'd sack them all.
Well, I mean,
I would sack them all.
But this is the point, you know, because when you're a civil servant, you are essentially unsackable.
Well, so
the people that drew up this report, yes, it was commissioned by Yvette Cooper, but when you're saying things and taking it upon yourself to say that people who have perceptions of two-tier justice in the society are far-right extremists, you seem to be going way beyond the pale of your remit there in terms of tackling extremism, because then essentially you're making a political judgment about the motives of people that say they are two-tier. Obviously, everyone that says that there is two-tier policing in this country is not far right. There may be far right people that think that, but it doesn't mean that everyone that thinks that is far right. Far from it.
And I blame Starmer for this because he politicised those riots by saying that it was only the far right, when there were plenty of people that contacted us that said, we've written hurty words, we've written things, and we're in trouble with the police. But this is the same government, with respect, and you can sit there and say she shouldn't or can't bring herself to get rid of that. You're unsackable. I think that says nothing about our country. If civil servants who are actively going against a democratic elected government are unsackable, we're in trouble. But there's also another leaked dossier that says that they're going to revive non-crime hate incidents.
Yeah.
So extremism we won't talk about. We're not going to have an inquiry into rape gangs because we might upset a few people, but we are going to make sure that if somebody writes down, I don't like this or I don't like that, they're rounded up and arrested. That is absolutely barking mad.
Well, it's actually part of the same document which is drawn up in the Home Office. So on the one hand, you have, like you said, people who are concerned there's a two-tier policing system in this country, are branded as far-right extremists. Then at the same time, you have the threat of radical Islamism, essentially diluted because they're adding in a whole other range of extremist forms. And then the same people that wrote the report, like you said, are saying that non-crime hate incidents should be revived. Now, Yvette Cooper makes the point that this is for tracking trends and rises in Islamophobia and anti-Semitism. If that's the short of it, then fine. The problem is that we've seen examples over the past few years of non-crime hate incidents being used to essentially almost censor people that do not meet the threshold of criminality, but it seems to almost shut down free speech. Alison Pearson, the Telegraph columnist, obviously probably the most memorable example of that, when she had a knock on the door for a year-old tweet. Now, I don't think many people in society think that's appropriate, and also an appropriate use of police time. they're stretched enough as it is. A lot of people that contact me when I write stories about this are saying, the crime in the streets is rife. We don't see police officers on the streets anymore. No. And this just adds to the feeling that they're monitoring social media rather than
I think they're in a right. I think that just sums up. But I've sat here 3 years, and we have talked. You and I have talked. We talked with Harry repeatedly with all sorts of people, and they all say the same thing. They go that the Home Office is not fit for purpose. It's not fit for purpose. There's too many career civil servants. Somebody needs to do something about that very quickly. We haven't got a lot of time. Migration. These figures out today will push Britain's population to an astonishing 72.5 million, although Henry Belton says it will be more. Nothing seems to be able to stop this influx, be it legal or illegal. They wanted, I think, legal migration capped at about 330. It's 750 this year already. This is a situation that is impacting, yes, on our public services. But you know this. You're the chief political correspondent at The Sun. I sense that British people are really, really getting to a point where they're not frightened to say what they think, and I just see a succession of politicians who aren't listening. I'm not saying there's going to. I'm not trying to incite but I do think people have had enough. And I do. People say to me, why do you always blame migrants for everything? Because the government is not listening to people. And when you see people coming into this country having not paid their way, sorry, I really believe this, seeing a doctor, getting a home, and you are struggling and you never broke the law and you never asked for a handout, you would be hacked off, wouldn't you?
Totally. And the biggest barometer of how that is happening is the rise of the Reform Party.
Yep.
They are the one party that's now making gains in the polls. Pretty good gains, the fact they're neck and neck with the Conservatives nipping at the heels of Labour. A poll out today showed that the reason people are voting for reform, as well as charismatic as Nigel Farage is his hardline policies on immigration. And what's the Reform Party policy on immigration? One in, one out. That is what they have said for the past year or so. That is stronger than anything Labour or the Tories are saying. Downing Street today have actually said, we're not going to go for a cap on migration. They're going to have a system, they're going to have a white paper, like a blueprint. They're going to have a meeting, a committee, a quango. I'm being shouted at. I've got a break. Listen, you can come whenever, mate. I'm really glad you had a lovely time in Barbados. It was great. Thank you very much.
Glad you look like a lobster. Jack Elsom on Talk Drive.